part 11. So this is after we've done a few maps, we've probably put in a bunch of different skill points, we've changed some of the items that we have equipped, but that's not really the main important thing with this part of our play session. The most important part is actually trying to get that last ascendancy. But another thing that's very important is to check your passives. So if I type in /passives, you will see all of the skills quests that we've done. Now, if you follow the playthrough, you will have all of them except for the deal with the bandits. We can manage this later. Technically, it's already completed. What we did, if you remember, is we helped Lyra. That granted us extra crit strike multiplier, which is crit damage. It granted us extra resistances. I still think it's usable now. It's not like you have to get rid of it, but I'll show you how to get rid of it later, as the +2 passives are usually going to be a lot more valuable than what is offered over there. But I have changed up the skill tree a little bit if you guys want to check it out. It depends on what you're going for. Like, I don't know what you guys like rolled. You might have gotten something that has like really good leeching or something else, right? The more important thing is that, like, I'm just going to show you the tree. So just for those of you guys that do kind of want to like kind of see it, I did unspec a few points out over here. We actually started scaling Impale. So what Impale does is it deals a portion of damage. We were already using Impale already, but now we have 100% chances for Impale. So for the Impale, there's actually a few nodes that we actually grabbed. So we grabbed these over here, and then we grabbed these over here. And then all we need to do is use the Impale support and use a banner gem. So I'll have to find out exactly where I put that banner gem, as it's somewhere. Dread Banner. So I also picked up this gem. If you guys want to pick up the gem yourself as well, just go to Oriath, which is at the epilogue. You talk to Lily Roth, and you can purchase pretty much most of the gems in the game. I say most because there are certain ones that you cannot get. Now there's also Detonate Mines over here, but pretty much you can get most of what you will be looking for. But the most important thing here is actually getting specifically this thing called Immortal Call. So what we're going to do is buy Immortal Call, which is the gem we already have in here. And then we're also going to do Cast When Damage Taken Support, which is going to be on the next page. So we'll type in Cast When Damage Taken, and we want to make sure these are linked. If I had 3 reds, what I would also do is do Increased Duration. So what this will do, to explain it really quick, we want to keep this at level 1, so don't level it up past level 1. You also want to keep this at a relatively low level. The reason why I say relatively low level is we will only want to upgrade it, I believe it's twice. Let me verify it, because sometimes, you know, things might have gotten buffed and nerfed on a new patch, and I need to make sure I give you guys the correct number. Yeah, level 3 is the max level that we upgrade this gem. I actually have it clicked on over here, so it won't level it up. But you only want to get to level 3. The reason why is you want it to activate as often as possible. So whenever we take at level, the lower the level that Cast When Damage Taken is, the lower number that will be required for it to activate the gem. So once we take 520 damage, it activates this gem. Ideally, again, I would have Increased Duration. But Immortal Call, what it does, it only lasts 1 second. We can increase this later, but it's called a guard skill. What it does is it grants us 25% less elemental and 26% less physical damage taken, and we also take 15% less physical damage taken per endurance charge removed. Since I actually do have endurance charges, it's okay that it uses my endurance charges for this, but overall it's not really that big of a deal. The most important thing is that I just am going to be taking less damage when this activates. It doesn't really last very long. I will eventually go into Molten Shell, which is something that we leveled up previously. I will go back into Molten Shell, but I need to make sure again that it does not go past level 38, because I want it to activate as often as possible. So I'm not even going to use Molten Shell really for the damage reduction, because usually with Molten Shell you have an insane amount of armor, like 10,000 plus, in order for it to actually be good. There's also another guard skill called Steel Skin, but this one you'll have to manually cast to get better results. Otherwise, the amount that it stops in terms of damage is relatively low. It's like 500-ish, whereas the percent will give you way better results for most people, unless you want to activate it manually. If you want to activate it manually, throw Steel Skin in, level it up as much as possible, you're a-okay. But I like to ignore this mechanic, and it's actually really, really easy. But I like Immortal Call for now. Later we'll go into Molten Shell for duration, and then we're going to also run this Jewel, and I'll explain it later. That's not the most important part. The most important part right now is cast 1 damage taken, Immortal Call, or you can run another one, but I'll recommend Immortal Call right in the beginning. I'll mouse over the pieces of gear really quick. You don't have to get these. Again, like I mentioned before, I might trade and get some items. I might, get some items as I've progressed on the map. Some certain items might have dropped. This is one item called Bear's Girdle, which is kind of cute. Grants me extra rage and increased physical damage to attacks, but it's really not required at all. It's more so something I wanted to test out later down the line. But we got some boots with a nice amount of resistances, not a huge amount of movement speed, so we got these for relatively cheap. But again, make sure your resistances are all good. Now, this is one thing I mentioned in my part 10 with Chaos Resistance. When you're starting to do these maps, when you're getting one-shotted, most of the time it's a huge physical crit or an amount of Chaos damage. To mitigate the amount of Chaos Resistance, I just got 2 Ming's Heart. These are super easy to get. They're super, super cheap. They're like 1 Chaos each. All you want to make sure when you pick these up is where it says Reduced Maximum Life, you want that as 5%. That's the lowest you can get. As in, like, the negative effects of these rings are not that big of a deal. It doesn't matter how much reduced maximum energy shield unless you happen to went an energy shield build. This is just a really cheap and fast way you can get chaos res. I got some on my armor as well. It's kind of a hard thing to get to have a good roll. I also got a new chest piece over here. The only real thing here is a little bit of chaos resistance and more life. The last one had literally 3 life. This was really cheap too. It was like 10 chaos. But we got a nice pair of gloves. These just have life. I needed some dexterity for my equipment to level up some of the gems. We also got crit strike chance, but these made the things go up way in price. Honestly, the only ones that were like within like when I went to the website to go purchase them, they were like 50 plus chaos. I got this for 5. I got a pretty good deal. What I'm really looking for, because I needed dexterity, you might have had another piece of armor or something that just granted like whatever to dexterity. I needed like at least 30 dex, and then I needed to have like, I wanted to have like 80 life on it, and then add physical damage to attack. And then I also wanted crit strike trance. I would probably just say 14% is not that high of a number. Just forgo that and get something else that's a little bit cheaper if you don't happen to see these, because it's very, very rare to see this have that many like great rolls, again, for the amount of price that I paid. I also got a new amulet over here. It just grants us more life, added some resistances. It's just pretty much like the same one. The other one we had before actually added a little bit more crit, but it's okay. I wanted some extra life, and this one rolled with resistances. It was like 1 chaos or something like that. It was like basically free. And then I also got that flask that I was talking about, Lion's Roar. But the most important thing that we're about to show right now is the final lab that we can do before we have to randomly encounter these labs. So I'm going to go back to the plaza over here and do the last lab that we can do without paying a cost. Now, these will cost offerings of the goddess. You'll get a bunch of these. Technically, in each one of these, you will drop one at the very end when you complete it. So you'll have basically 6 tries to do it. But you can also hire someone, and you pay them like 5 chaos, and they'll do the whole thing for you, which is really nice. But we're going to do it manually because that's what we want to do here. But hello, Guard. How you doing, mate? Hello, Sonato. And hello, Magus. How you doing? But let us continue on our playthrough. Another thing I can recommend when you do Azaro is when you do the last lab, probably unequip this and literally equip any helmet that gives you life. The reason why I mentioned before in the first part of a playthrough is he hits for physical damage, and you don't want to be taking increased physical damage. Unless you're running some like really weird build. Oh, we got a treasure key. Maybe we can get really lucky and get something good at the very end. And you'll definitely notice that the lab is a lot more difficult. So we'll walk you through it. It's okay. If you die, though, you can still do this one again and again. Like, there's no penalty. It just sucks doing it all over from the start. Oh, I got a superior gem. We actually got a 5-link weapon too, but that's really cheap. as the league progresses, things that aren't like perfect will start to get really, really cheap as people are like, you know, they level up with the item, and if they were like trying to get like 5 chaos before, it could go to 1 real easy. But just take your time, like I've always mentioned before on these. It's totally okay to do these slow. But also, you should probably do this without Yugioh. Like, I'm at this point though, since like they want you to be about 70-ish, is what I would say is good. Where 6 levels kind of ahead. But it's still a little bit dangerous to do with auto. I'm gonna make sure I always have my granite flask up. In fact, I probably would recommend taking 2 granite flasks. You can take a basalt flask that will also reduce your physical damage taken. But since I have these endurance charges and I have fortify on my setup here with my cyclone linked, I'll just take a lot less damage. I think we'll be a-okay. I mean, once I get enough endurance charges, and if Immortal calls out, it's really not a big deal. Oh, unfortunately, it doesn't have full charges. Normally, I would say just go back, get this thing with the full charges, because, yeah, you don't want to get one-shotted. I'll just not take that damage. Oh, you can see, he did a good amount of damage right there. Nice little chunk of damage. You gotta watch out for when, you know, he hits you for that big damage, but one thing that's nice with Immortal Call is once you take that huge damage, it'll, like, activate, and then, like, the next hit will deal significantly less. Eventually, I'm going to basically use Molten Shell for the amount of duration that it lasts. But at the very end, you just have to be very careful as there's a lot more traps. But since I'm not going to be using Flicker Strike, we'll be a lot better off. The only thing I'm really worried about is some of these areas with the traps. Especially if you get hit by, like, multiple of the traps, it could just be game over real fast. We're about to come up to a nice big level up here. Everything's about to level up. Okay. So I want to make sure, again, I don't level up Immortal Call past 3. So this is like, I think it's level 3 now. Rage, yes. Melee physical, yes. Faster attacks. I actually don't want to level this one up. Actually, if we go Star Conjurers, we can still have more. You know what? It's okay to level this one up. I'm just thinking about it now. Because I needed more dexterity, and I mean, honestly, I don't really need the faster attacks to be super high level. This, yes, we level up. Blood Rage, totally fine to level up. Unless you're doing like a cast when damage taken Blood Rage, you can do that too. I wouldn't recommend doing it in here though. I would actually remove that gem completely, as I don't want a Blood Rage. There's a mechanic where we need a golden key here, so we will go ahead and do that. It's probably a little like puzzle. So if you want to look it up, you can go to the PoE lab. Look, see, we just like hopped across all of it. Kind of cheesed it over there, but hey, take your advantages. Hell the Purity and Impale. Definitely grabbing that as well. As Impale makes the boss fights in this game so much faster. Because you just start stacking your Impales, and once you get your Impale stacked high enough, you basically can do more damage with the Impale than the actual attack itself. So you can see where we're at. This one's still pretty easy. The only one that was like relatively challenging is the very, very last one, for me personally. Right. If you still have Ancestral War Chief, definitely use it as well. I didn't have the gems to use it here. Ooh, look at that amount of damage. That was pretty close. That's a little bit dangerous, I'm gonna be honest. But for me, that sense of danger makes the game more exciting, because the only other excitement I get, since I'm not a hardcore player, right? It gets that adrenaline pumping when you see your character's about to die and you're going to mess up, is doing heists, because in heists you can die also. But like I mentioned before, take it slow, and if you die during it, it's okay. I mean, this only takes like maybe 10 minutes at most for most people. No, it depends how slow you go technically, but on average, I'd say 10 to 15 minutes. But we are over leveled for this, although technically in the defense part we're probably a little bit under, as I wanted to get a lot of more impale damage to be active. This one over here will still lead us, I believe, towards the end anyways, so we can still use this one. Watch out for those saw traps. Those are the things I'd say, if I'm dying by something, it's usually those saws that like move back and forth, or it's the ones that kind of move like around with you. Those are the most deadly. The reason why is because you don't notice you're getting hit by it, and you're continuing the path. Ooh, Cyclone leveled up, nice. That's a huge source of damage. I'm not gonna click on the strong box. It's not worth it. Never worth it. All right, we're on the final one. See, it wasn't that bad. That was like, we're not even 20 minutes into it and I explained all the stuff. So this one, you'll see there's more traps. And the final one is even more insane with the amount of traps. Again, important thing, make sure you have your granite flask up at like almost all times here. Oh! Close, that was close. And on the final one, there is this cheeky guy that will have reflect fizz. So I'll mention it again before we do that like final one, but let's go get the other Trial of Ascendancy. And what I'm going to do for this one, because I plan to go get Flawless Savagery right now because it's half of an Abyssius, which is the helmet that we have that does an insane amount of damage. This one is what I plan to get at the very end. However, if you want to, this technically got a buff. This one's not too bad, to be honest. Usually people will get this like ASAP, but since I'm scaling so much rage anyways, I feel like our damage is really good. I just need more survivability, and I would rather have the increased critical strike chance and then eventually drop this. In fact, I can drop it once I get another armor that's just as good, and I would rather get melee physical damage, which is going to significantly increase our damage. But I want to make sure we have the crit. But we have a helmet enchant over here as well, which, to be honest, I probably should have bought my Star Cone just before going in here because I want to actually use the Divine Font. So the helmet enchantment is by far one of the best that you can get. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in. You want the Flicker Strike damage. This is actually a useful one. Blade Blast. I mean, it's not the final lab one. The final lab one is the one that's worth a lot because the numbers will be higher. It'll be the same thing that like Blade Blast deals X amount more damage. But you can roll like any of the skills in the game. If you roll a skill that's useful, even though I love this item, and like I can basically use this till the end game, I would sell this one and I can get like, let's say, depending on what it rolls, you could sell it sometimes for several times the price of a normal one. So it's a good thing to do if you roll, you know, amazing. Let's open them all up. Alright. Fortunately, I would say that this wasn't really that great of drops, but we have it's a bootleg Abyssius. So let's go ahead and go right back in, and now that we've completed the last lab, I'll at least show you guys the items we got, and we'll see if they're worth anything. Southbound. Alright, let's check this out. I don't think Southbound is worth very much. Southbound. And let's see what it's worth. Southbound is like a Chaos, so yeah, it's not really worth that much. And then we've got Flesh Eater. Let's see if that's worth anything. Flesh Eater. Is it 2 words? Flesh, oh, it's Flesh Dash Eater. Alright, so let's see if Flesh Eater, is Flesh Eater worth anything? And no, it's not worth anything. And then this, I already know, is not worth anything. Although I like the item. It's a decent leveling item because it just grants you Fizz. So I like it. For Izara in the very beginning, it's something that I do like to have. But now what I'm going to do is just go back to my hideout. Alright, so let's go ahead and go over a brief tutorial on selling now that we can actually sell our items for a decent amount of currency. So what you want to do is actually get a premium stash tab. Now this is optional. You can spam in the like general chat, or if you want to go to the trade chat, but it's just so much easier to do this way. So what you want to do is purchase a premium stash tab or upgrade a regular stash tab into a premium stash tab. That will actually cost you $1. And at this point in the game, if you don't want to, give him $1, that's totally fine. You could spam the trade chat, but this is generally the best way. You're going to upgrade to a premium stash tab. Again, it'll cost you, the conversion rate is $1, but you'll probably have to buy like $5 worth because it doesn't let you buy like $1 worth, if that makes any sense. But what you want to do is when you get the new stash tab, you can right click on it and you can customize it with the premium stash tab. But you want to make sure you can name it whatever you want, but you want to make sure this is public and each item is individually priced. It just makes things so much easier. And so then you click OK on that. Now, so you've probably acquired maybe a few items. This is where I'm going to start showing you guys how to sell stuff. Now, the best thing to do is check online how much these are actually going for. So to share screens with you guys, this item right here, the perfect fall. So if I look it up, everyone's selling it for 5 pretty much. There is one person selling it for 2, but he's probably not actually selling it for 2. He's AFK. Sometimes randomly, sometimes you can get a good deal, but more than likely he's trying to make it so other people that sell it think it's worth less. There's sometimes you'll see multiple listings by like one person, or it'll be a bunch of gibberish. The reason why it's gibberish is because they have multiple accounts that have a lot of these, and they're trying to trick other people thinking, oh, this is the rate, right? The rate is probably going to be 5. Okay. But I'm going to specifically list this as at 4, and you'll see generally it's going to be really fast, because a lot of times what happens when you list an item for lower than its value, people have these bots and you'll just get like message, and then if you get like 10 messages like super fast, more than likely you've sold your item for too cheap. So I also have to make sure that this is checked where it says public. This is again on a premium stash tab. So it's going to be public, and then we make sure we say it's okay. And then again, we're able to right click list on it for whatever the price that we want. And then someone will come in eventually, and then they will buy it. We're going to go right click, invite to party, and we will go grab our item and we will sell it to him. Sometimes it takes a while for them to message you, so if you don't sell it immediately, don't worry. Like, you can keep, sometimes people keep stuff in there for days. So all I have to do is right click. Let me move my face out of the way. Right click on him, go to trade, and he'll usually warp in. And we go mouse over the item, make sure he gives you the same amount. If he cancels the trade and reopens up the trade, make sure you make sure this guy's also whispering me sold. Sorry. It's sometimes I'm always a player that if something is sold, I will always say sorry, it is sold. But you can see now that it was too cheap, and sometimes some APIs they'll pick it up a little bit later. Like, it takes like a minute for it to usually register on most websites, but that's how you sell your items. And we obviously know how to buy already, but that's how you do it. I've shown this one off. So what we got to do for this one is we have to start the pump. So you'll see if you click on it, it'll start. Now it's basically tower defense. You'll see these different little build things, and I'll show you kind of the different elements. So we can, if we want to, we can build whatever we want to. They do different things. Honestly, most people end up just getting the fireball ones, and then like you can modify them. You can also upgrade them. They just cost these points, and don't worry too much about saving them, like the points. So like you can like carry them over for the next one. But you can just keep on upgrading them, and you'll see each one of these will have like several different pumps, or it's more so like there's one pump, but there's basically different areas that will have them spawn in. I like the zombie one because it can distract them a lot. But if one goes through, like I'll let a small one go through maybe. Oh, this one might just go through anyways. Oh. Well, if it gets destroyed, okay, we at least have one that didn't get destroyed. I was thinking about letting one go through so you can see like the thing go down. But what you can get off of these are oils, and oils can be used to anoint an item. So if I wanted to get a certain one of these, if I hold Alt and I talk to Cassia, we'll be able to see like the exact recipe to get like this notable. But if you do successfully protect that, they're called assist. If you protect it, you can click on it, and okay, cool, we got an oil. Okay, once this guy is finished talking, you might actually have to talk to her like once first. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to my hideout right now. She happens to be in my hideout, but I'm gonna go to town because you'll have to tell her to go to your hideout for the first time. So if you click on Cassia, I already have her in my hideout, but I would have to click like invite to hideout or something like that. I forgot the exact word of it, but you can see if I go to anointing oils, she'll kind of explain it, but I'll explain it like faster. So if I put in an amulet, it only works with amulets, by the way. So if I put this in, this one's already anointed over here as it has allocates devotion. They also, in a lot of these trade websites, they'll call this enchant. But basically, you put this combination in, and whatever one that you want, like this one is amber oil, but some require multiples of the same, but that's how you get like any passive on the skill tree without having to connect it. And that's like also the Blight mechanic, as later you'll be able to choose which league mechanic that you like, and you can invest like basically higher chances of it to spawn in, or it will grant better results. But that's a brief explanation of what the Blight mechanic would be. It's tower defense, but you have all these different little things that you can choose. It's really easy if you play at like Necromancer, but if you play a melee build, sometimes you have to run over here, then run over here. It's nice also if you play like in a party with that, but that's Blight mechanic. Now, you're going to encounter some of these boss encounters. The Conquerors are going to be spawning in. And as you do these maps, you might have actually noticed it. Sometimes on some of the areas, they'll be kind of colored in like this. So you'll see that this area, Valdo's Rest, is colored in, and also Lyra is colored in. So if I keep doing these maps, the Conqueror will eventually spawn in. And I'll fast forward to like a boss fight. But what you want to try to do is, if the area is influenced, just keep on running maps in the area that it is shown. So for example, we would do Canyon, Promenade, we've got Orchard. Just do the maps in these areas, and eventually the Conqueror will spawn in. And what you'll do is you'll talk to Kyrak, and he'll have an exclamation mark right above his head. You want to talk to him, and then you will talk to Zana, and there'll be a map that you go in, and it's exactly the same, but at the very end there's a boss fight, and let me fast forward it to the boss fight. But also, one thing that I want to make sure that I do mention here is in some of the areas, if you put in a map tier that is too low, like you don't have any of the Watchstones that will be socketed in the area, which we'll show off in a second here, it'll say this tier of the map is too low for any Conqueror to occupy the region. So you want to make sure the map tier is a little bit higher. You can see the map tier number 4 right next to it. So that's something important to also take in consideration when you go ahead and roll these maps. That we finished that map that I was just doing, because I just wanted to go ahead and finish it. We are now going to talk to the officer here, and he's going to tell us to talk to Zana. Now this one, I don't need a map to actually go and play. What we're going to do is we will walk right over to Zana, and we're going to click on where it says Traven to Baron's Citadel. This is where we will engage in a boss fight. And he's kind of tough. If you die, it's no worries. But remember, you can only die so many times. I've actually spec'd out to do more damage here, at the cost of maybe some survivability, but I think it'll be worth it. Which will be a pretty easy boss fight. But it opens up another one. I'm going to enter it really fast because I want to keep these rage stacks as much as I possibly can. I also can't actually open up a portal here, as you'll see. But before the boss starts, I can go throw a portal up over here. And I'm going to go back in. I just wanted to show you that mechanic. So make sure you do that. But my rage is kind of taking... Wait, almost for HP before I even get to fight him. We should probably not get hit by this, but... Don't stand in the squares. This is the boss mechanic for him. Oh, I need some mana. I have a lot of leech, but like that rage... Ooh, there we go. So we melted him pretty fast. So the most important thing is really this Watchstone. Some of these jeweled foils can actually be pretty insane. There's a Crusader plate that can be really good, but we can come back. It's not that big deal. I want to identify those so you guys can see how it works. But this is the most important thing with this, is these Watchstones. So you see that the map will have sockets in it, kind of like, you know, our items have sockets in it. But what we do is when we push this in here, it's going to modify the maps to sometimes be different like areas. So let's see, there's Palace over here, but Palace over here is now moved, and there might be certain things that just don't pop up unless you put this in. But you can see how it says tier 5, there's a tier 4. I put this in, tier 8. So the more stones we socket and put in here, the more difficult when we do these maps, in terms of like, the higher tier you go, technically the harder it gets in the game. But once you start socketing, you're going to get like some insane modifiers, and you can modify these even more with what's called sextants, and I'll show you that mechanic in a moment. But let's go ahead and see what some of these do. I can grab actually one of these. Let's grab this one. I'm not going to modify this one though. I mean, unless it rolls some like really insane godly rolls. But remember, you can't use portals here, so you'll actually have to go back to Plaza, and then you'll open up the hideout here. They make you do it this way. And then we'll identify the items so you guys can see what we got. Most of these things probably aren't worth anything. Like, for example, this. I can go check. It's always good to check, especially at the start of a league. You never know what could be worth something. And sometimes even worse things, if you hold Alt, you can see the exact rolls on them. And this one rolled pretty good, so it could be worth... sometimes there's, again, specific people that are looking for, like, one item, but it has to roll like absolutely perfect. We'll also identify these. These also have a cool little like cosmetic, like you can see like the skin has this lightning. I really like the effect of it over here, but is this worth anything? Not to my knowledge. Is this one worth anything? Yeah, life is good. That's really about the only cool thing that rolled. Increased armor and evasion can be okay too, but like it would have to really roll some insane stuff. And sometimes people will get these as a base because of its item level, and what these things can potentially roll on it, because you can see the little like icon on like the right, but I'm just gonna go sell it for like the basic currency. But that is what you will do, and we can talk to Kyrak over here, and I'll say like good job. And pretty much from here on out, we're gonna be doing just more of these maps in the areas that are influenced. Now you'll see that it's not influenced, so I can't just do... I could just try to do more maps over here, but ideally you just want to do as many maps that are new as possible until that area gets influenced, and then just roll maps again and again in that same area. Alright, so now at this point, most of you guys are probably still trying to complete all of the trials. The other suggestion that I want to give you guys as a tip, under the channel here, 820 is the channel. So if you go to the a global chat, which is over here. Let me show you this. I'll move my face out of the way. If I right click on this, I can type in any number and hit enter, and it'll put me in that chat. 820 is usually going to be the chat that you want to see, where it says there's TPs up for this type of a trial. You want to complete all of the trials. If you want to know the names of the trials, the easiest way to do this is you can go online, or if you want to just use what's available in game, is you can go ahead and click on any one of or just highlight your mouse over the area, and I'll tell you the exact name of it, and I'll show you if you've completed it or not. At this point, I've already completed it, but don't worry, I'll still be uploading more of this. But you want to make sure you go and do the final lab. This is the Eternal Lab, also known as the Uber Lab, the final one that you'll need to do. This one is very difficult, but I will give you guys a full video on that very soon. But you're probably going to need a little bit more in the progression. So at this point, just keep on doing maps until you find all of the trials, or you can join someone to do it. Here's what my map looks like right now. I still need to do a lot more of these maps. You can see how many out of like 164 I've actually done, and we're just going to map out the area. You can also purchase maps over on the, there's a lot of different websites that you can purchase the maps on, but at the very beginning I probably wouldn't recommend buying any of the maps. You usually have pretty good sustain, but if you're trying to get a specific map, look where the map is moving towards. Like for example, if I need to do Cemetery, the ones that are connected to Cemetery over here are the ley line as well as the ramparts. That will give you a better chance to roll that specific map in that area. You also have a few other things that I can show off over here, and I would probably save these, but if you happen to need another map that's a different one, it will reforge the map item as another of the same tier. So let me show you what this could look like. So for example, over here, the museum map, if I hold Alt, it says that I've already completed it. But if I go ahead and use an Orb of Horizon, it will change it to another tier 7 map, which is going to be Waterways. I haven't done Waterways, so that's one thing that you can do. Although I would I kind of recommend to use it at a higher tier map versus a lower tier, as you can purchase the lower tier maps for next to nothing. Or the greatest thing that you can do is, if you have a friend, you can say, hey, can I have all your maps that aren't, the ones that you've done, and we'll just swap. Like, what maps do you need? That's an easy way for you guys to basically trade really fast. Sometimes what I will do is, if my friend has progressed super far ahead of me, I will say, hey, yo, can I have all your maps? And then I'll just like buy them off him. I won't take them off for free, because the red maps are worth a little bit. Pretty much the rest of them. There are unique maps that are expensive too, but pretty much like all the other, like the white maps, it's just a matter of just completing them, and it will take some time. But if you have a friend, or if you want to trade people for these are worth like very, very little, and it's really easy to obtain. But I want to go ahead and mention that. So hopefully all these little like short videos, I know it's kind of cut up, but I can't just do like a full playthrough and have it like relatively short, because most of the maps, they're going to be random on which ones that you're encountering, but that's just the mechanic and nature of having RNG maps. But pretty much just do as many maps as you can, and just keep on completing them, and do the lab trials, and eventually you will get to the final one, which is the Uber lab, which will show off in the next part of our playthrough. But that's going to pretty much wrap things up for this part of the PoE progression series. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it, and if you want to see more and you happen to be new here, I'd recommend checking out part 1, but most of you guys are probably sticking around for like the entirety of the playthrough, as I do want to fight the final Maven challenge, and I don't even know how hard that's going to be. I've also changed up the build quite a bit. At this point in the playthrough, I'm a little bit further ahead of what I've shown off, but that's because I want to show off like, what would be considered new content versus like doing every single map. I feel like that's kind of redundant. I'll show you the tree in case any of you guys do want to copy it. The real changes that I've actually made, instead of using Flicker Strike, which I was using here, I am now using Cyclone as the main skill. I've actually purchased this item called Camp's Primacy. It grants us the physical damage as extra fire damage. I honestly don't think you need this. You're probably better off using the Terminus, and you could still just run Cyclone and don't worry about it. It's actually something I more so wanted to test out than anything, but there's no real upgrades in here that are like super important to mention, but other than like I've swapped to an axe that just happens to have a different like mechanic, as we are building up more rage. But for the last part, if you do want to get a little bit more ahead, I did put the last of the lab, I did put it into Aspect of Carnage for a massive amount of damage bonus here. But yeah, just keep on progressing, and if you're feeling like you're dying too often, you can get a few different items. Specifically, what's getting you killed more than likely is the Abyssius. It's the helmet. Going over what that one is. It's the helmet that makes you take a lot more damage. So I've already purchased one of these, but right now I'm running Devoted Devotion so I can have increased movement speed. But for most of you guys, Starconjas will be an excellent addition, especially if you're still using that sword, the Terminus S. The reason why is this grants you a huge amount of life. It still grants you attack speed and crit chance, so it's still very good for those reasons. But yeah, what's probably getting you killed if you feel like you're dying too often, swap out the Abyssius. This helmet, it gives you a lot of damage, but you'll also be taking a huge amount of damage. At this one, we've got 45, which is like in between. Ideally, you want this as low as possible. You want 40% on the very bottom. But anyways, yeah, that's going to wrap up this part. There's so much more content, though, and I'll be uploading it very soon, TM. Because again, it's kind of random on like, what I can show you, and I want to show you guys the new stuff. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.